Hello, my name is Katherine Schreiber. I'm a student at Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 things in the Madison and St. Clair County area that I have deemed to be a health and/or safety issue. So the first image that I wanted to talk about was an image that I took from the Watershed Nature Center, and those who are familiar with the Edwardsville area will recognize this. For those who are not familiar with this area, the Watershed Nature Center is a trail that loops around in a circle, and there is a section where the trail kind of trails off and you're able to walk on this sidewalk onto the marsh. And so as we can see here, the walkway doesn't appear to have any supports, and that makes it susceptible to someone potentially losing their balance and falling off of that walkway into the water. One thing that I did want to point out was whenever I did go to the Nature Center to take a picture of the pathway or the trail, I really tried to look for signs warning people to be mindful that there were no railings. And the only thing that I could find was this sign about a northern water snake right before you went onto the marsh. And this sign basically describes how the snakes can reach great length, how they are very quick to bite someone, and how they are found in the water. And the only warning sign that I can find is at the very bottom of the sign, if you can see. It talks about for your safety and the snake safety, please do not disturb any snakes that you may see. This could be especially harmful to small children who could potentially fall into the marsh. And the way that I determine the issue to be a health issue is that there's a potential of not only falling in, but drowning, and it's potentially hazardous it would be potentially hazardous to small children. There's also the potential of infectious disease from falling in, as well as the potential for harm from animals in the pond, which the example would be those northern water snakes. Here is another image that I ended up finding online that didn't have all the grass around it, and this itself could even be dangerous just because if you see in the water it's pretty icy. There could also be a potential that those sidewalks or that pathway is also icy. I wanted to talk about the communities impacted by the image, and the traditional community would be at the city of Edwardsville. It could also be any surrounding cities, and the non-traditional communities could include school-aged children, children on field trips, families with children, general walkers, churches or organizations who interact with the watershed. There is a school right next to the Watershed Nature Center, and so I'm sure that they utilize this nature center quite often. And even me myself, I used to go on field trips to the Watershed Nature Center as a kid, and I remember that we would be told to be accompanied with an adult on this part of the trail, but you may not always have that. There may not be someone at these trails telling you to be accompanied with an adult. So a reasonable goal that I chose in order to rectify the health issue based on the community data was to install railings or guardrails on the sides of the walkway. I did attempt to reach out to the Watershed Nature Center asking for more demographics and data, but I did not receive a response from them. So I did use my data from the US Census, and what I did find was as of 2018, 19.8% of the population is under the age of 18. And also, as I said previously, one thing that I've known from attending the Edwardsville School District growing up is that there are a lot of local field trips. There's a lot of different events that happen, and these events really kind of revolve around these school-aged younger children. So the tactics that I would use, the main one that I would use would be persuasion with this scenario. And what I would do is I would ask questions that got people thinking. Some of those questions may be something like, has anyone ever brought up the issue of safety at the marsh walk? Or has a child ever fallen into the marsh? And from what we've learned with persuasion from the online recorded lectures in our class is that some individuals may be resistant to support this decision. They may not think it's a big deal. They may use the argument that, you know, maybe no one's ever fallen in before. And what I would want to do is I would want to make sure that I'm acknowledging the opinions of other side. And I could say something such as, yes, that's true. Nobody has fallen into the marsh yet, but there's also a first time for everything. And as for the benefits of this advocacy project, the benefits would be that it could protect both children as well as wildlife from being in danger. And limitations, something that I found was that from looking at their website, the Watershed Nature Center is a nonprofit agency and it relies a lot on donations to continue to function. And I'm not really sure how much the cost of constructing railings would be, but I'm sure that it's not cheap. Another limitation or something that someone could argue could be that there could be maintenance to keep those railings clean, things like that. As for who I would advocate my change to, I would first advocate my change to the possible owners of the Watershed Nature Center. I could potentially talk to the donors maybe later if it's not getting very far. And that change would be advocating on behalf of small children. And I do believe that the advocacy movement does align with the 3 principles of macro level advocacy. As for increasing an accessible location or increasing the accessibility to services, the Marsh Walk is already an accessible location. The railings would just be an extra safety precaution implemented in order to provide that extra safety measurement, as well as prevent someone from falling into the marsh and potentially being in danger. And we are definitely taking the dignity and worth of our clients who use the Watershed Nature Center into consideration. And as for promoting equal access, it would give equal access to safety for children as well as adults. So the next image that I wanted to talk about, the second image, is in Maryville, Illinois. And as you can see in this image, the sidewalks in the area just kind of come to a stop. And this specific location, I will show you a map on the next slide, but this specific location is off of where Route 159 intersects and also where 162 intersects. So my concern with this is if these sidewalks would have kept going, then they would eventually reach Anderson Hospital. So what I'm finding is that there are no sidewalks in order to access Anderson Hospital. And the communities impacted by the image, the traditional communities, would be Maryville itself. I would also include surrounding towns such as Troy, Edwardsville, Glen Carbon, Collinsville, any of these cities that utilize Anderson Hospital. As for non-traditional communities, I would place commuters in this category, as there's a potential of hitting someone while driving on these roads, and also low-income families who do not have access to transportation. And so for this image, I went to Google Maps and I took a photo of it just so I could describe the location further. And I wanted to point out, here is Anderson Hospital. And what I am talking about is right here. It looks like the crosswalks just kind of stop right here where that Circle K and that Walgreens is. And you can also see the same thing on the Dallabine Drive, also going to Anderson Hospital as well. There are also no sidewalks on there, and I will draw that real fast. That is right here. So there are no crosswalks in order for someone to safely get to Anderson Hospital. Now, I wasn't able to get a good image on my phone with this location, so I went ahead and went onto Google Maps. So the photo credit for this slide and the next slide is to Google Maps. I just took screenshots, and as you can see Anderson Hospital on the very right, and the roads, there are no sidewalks on these roads. And so how I determine the issue to be a health issue is that there's a potential of being hit by a car while trying to get to the hospital, especially for individuals who may live close, who don't have access to a car. This could be one of the only ways that they get to the hospital. I will also point out that these roads can be quite narrow. I know that there is construction going on where the Walgreens is, and so that's making the roads especially more narrower. And this could be very dangerous if someone needed to walk or ride their bike to the hospital, or even, local residents of this area, if they're walking on these roads, this could be potentially dangerous. So as for the community data, I went on to the US Census again, and I looked at the population of Maryville itself, and as of 2018, it's close to almost 8,000 individuals or residents. I could not find information on how many residents owned vehicles. The only thing that I could find was that 7.8 of the population of Maryville are made up of people in poverty. And the goal that I came up with for rectifying the health issue is to install sidewalks in order to ensure safety. However, I'm not sure if that is a reasonable goal, just because it would be hard for me to prove that this was necessarily needed, just because of the low population, the low percentage of people in poverty. It appears as though in these surrounding towns, Maryville, Troy, Glen Carbon, Collinsville, a lot of people have access to a car, and there's also access to an ambulance if they need it. And the tactic that I would use petitioning, and what I would do is I would collect signatures on a piece of paper that asks the village to implement the changes. What I could also do is I could also form a group and use teamwork in order to reach our goal. The benefits of this would be that there would be safer access to the hospital on foot, and also in general there would be safer access on these roads, or people who walk on these roads daily. The limitations would be that it would be very costly to implement something like this. It would be very hard to advocate for these changes due to the fact that the census data, as I explained before, doesn't reflect a high rate of poverty. And I think it's assumed that a majority of residents in the Glen Carbon, Maryville, Troy, Collinsville area are pretty well off and they can afford transportation. Additionally, an ambulance or a med cab or public transportation could be called instead of walking to the hospital on foot. And as for who I would advocate this change to, I would go to Maryville City Hall. I would advocate this change for individuals who are local, who do not have access to transportation. Here is another image from Google Maps, and it's just the same road, but it's going in a different direction towards the Walgreens and the Circle K. And this is just another image to show you that there is a lack of sidewalks on this road. As for whether or not the advocacy movement aligns with the 3 principles of the macro level advocacy, I believe that it does align with all 3. This movement would work to increase the accessibility for those who did not have easy access to transportation, people who would walk on foot. This also shows that clients who do not have access to transportation are just as worthy to be able to access emergency health care or a safe walking path compared to people who drive. And we are also making sure that individuals without access for transportation are also included when discussing access to a hospital, as I previously stated. The third image that I wanted to talk about was the abundance of radon in older homes within this community. And as you can see here, this picture was taken in my house that my husband and I just moved into. When we were looking at purchasing this house, we were told that the house had tested for high levels of radon. And being first-time homebuyers, we didn't really know what radon was. And so our realtor helped explain it, and we also looked into sources online to kind of see what the dangers of having radon in our home were, and come to find out it's a very, very serious issue. And so what we ended up doing was we had the seller install this system in our home that essentially removes the radon and makes it a safe place for us to live in. Our realtor explained to us that radon has been a big issue in the Madison County with older homes. She's explained that this has been an issue due to the mines that this county has had in the past, and I guess those chemicals have somehow, caused radon to seep into the homes. And so the location, like I said, is in my house, and our house is located in Maryville, Illinois, but radon is also common in older homes within the area, as I stated before, and it's not just Madison County, it's the state of Illinois, it's also the United States of America. It is an issue that is prevalent throughout many of the states in the country, so it is a serious issue. So, any of those things that I mentioned, I mean, the country itself, the states, Maryville, those geographical locations would be considered the traditional communities affected. And as for non-traditional, it would be neighborhoods, individuals who are living in the home with high levels of radon, houses throughout not only Madison County, but the country, but the gas can also seep into the physical structure of a building. So it's not just residential houses, churches, schools, work buildings, any physical structures could be affected by radon. And how I determined it to be a health issue is from what our realtor had told us, is that radon is a silent killer, and it is the second cause of developing lung cancer. I wanted to show this image. This was created by an individual from U of I of Illinois, Champaign, and this was created in 2016, and this kind of shows a map of radon levels, and the darker the color, the worse that the area is. So as you can see in Illinois, right here, it's pretty red and orange, and we really kind of fall into that red-orange category. We're right here. So this is definitely an issue, like I said, not only in the state of Illinois or Madison County or St. Clair County, but also within the United States. So based on the data that I found from the image that was shown before, what I would want to do is I would want to put a focus on Madison County itself, just because I would feel as though this would be a more reasonable goal than focusing on the state of Illinois or the entire United States. And what I would do is I would want to provide awareness to residents regarding the potential of radon in their homes. And so the tactic that I would use is I would petition for awareness. I would hand out flyers and petition for essentially having free radon testing kits provided by the local city halls or the town halls or the Madison County Health Department. And I know from whenever I have bought a house that testing for radon can be pretty pricey, which is why I would not use a fair hearing strategy on behalf of individuals with high levels of radon. The issue that I would want to look at would be that essentially the issue is that radon needs to be detected before we can address the issue. This is why I would choose petitioning for awareness. I would go to the county health department, and if they ignored our petition for awareness, then I would move on to embarrassing the target in forms of picketing, handing out flyers, etc. And interestingly enough, I found a series of articles from January of this year stating that the Madison County Public Health Department was actually providing $6 radon testing kits on behalf of Radon Awareness Month. And some of the issues that I saw with this that kits were only offered at the Wood River Health Department office. So like I said before, I would want to advocate that they were free. And I would also want to advocate that they be provided at every city or village or town hall in Madison County in order to give that equal access to residents. So the benefits are that the free testing kits could lead to awareness of radon. If an individual finds that they have radon in their home detected from the free kits, then they could move forward with installing a system to remove the radon. And this could essentially also save lives in the long run. And the limitations are that honestly, the free kits and testing the radon, this doesn't essentially solve the issue. If you use a test and you find that radon is still in your house, this only brings awareness. This doesn't actually remove the radon from your house. And the systems that are used to remove the radon can, be anywhere from $800 to $1,500. So they are quite costly. Another limitation to this would be the cost of the kits. Having them free would definitely be a cost for these cities to pay for. So we may run into potential conflict in that area. And as stated before, I would advocate my change to the Madison County Health Department because they oversee these sorts of things and they should address health issues within the county. I do believe that the advocacy movement does align with the 3 principles of the macro level advocacy. As for how the movement would work to increase the accessibility to service, the kits would be free, which would especially benefit low-income families who couldn't afford the regular testing kits. And as for promoting services, that does not detract from the dignity and worth of clients. Again, the effort is designed, to provide equal awareness to all individuals. It ensures that all individuals receive testing kits. And also, how does it promote equal access? The implementation of having the kits in each city or town or village hall could provide easy access for individuals instead of the kits just being offered in the one town. And that example was the Wood River Health Department for Madison County residents. The 4th place that I wanted to talk about was in St. Clair County, and because I work at Hoyleton Youth and Family Services, I pass by this specific street every day. And this location is off of Route 159 in Salem Place. And from what I have observed is that there are no crosswalks or sidewalks here. And it may be a little hard to see, but I will highlight it. If you can see the sign right here, oh, hold on. If you can see the sign right here, that is a sign for the bus stop. So you do have pedestrians walking on these streets and it is very unsafe. I have observed quite a few people walking across the roads, and this intersection is very, very busy, especially during rush hour. And the street is also very, very close to the I-64 intersection. So it's very, very dangerous for someone to be walking on these roads. And the communities impacted by the image would be the city of Fairview Heights for a traditional community, as well as surrounding cities as well. And as for non-traditional communities, this could be the daily commuters, this could be individuals who take public transportation, people who have to walk or wait for the bus. And how we determined this issue to be a health issue is that there's a potential of being hit by a car while trying to cross the street. Now, as for the community data, I did attempt to reach out to the city for information regarding implementation of sidewalks, but I did not receive a response. So I did refer to the U.S. Census data again for this information. I found that the population of Fairview Heights as of 2018 was 16,448 residents. Out of those residents, 8.6 people were considered in poverty, and there's a median household income of $64,611 annually. There are also lots of businesses in Fairview Heights, which attracts workers and individuals from surrounding cities, myself included. Here are a couple more images. As I said before, this is a very busy intersection, so I did attempt to take some pictures, but the images that I screenshotted from Google Maps really kind of give a bigger, clear, more just a better picture. So I have credited some of these images to Google Maps. So as for the tactics that I would use for the advocacy effort, I would use petitioning. I would start with petitioning towards the city in order to construct sidewalks and crosswalks. I would work as a team. I would go around to surrounding locations, potentially residents, asking if they would be willing to sign or participate in this petition. Now, if the city did not respond to the efforts, then I would move forward with embarrassing the target for change. And an example of this would be attending town hall meetings, writing letters to the city, picketing, and handing out flyers. So the benefits would be that pedestrians would have easy and safe access to the other side of the street. And this could also potentially bring in more businesses to the city from individuals who use public transportation or who do walk. And the limitations would be that I assume it's very costly to construct sidewalks, and I know that it would definitely take time. Another limitation is that the goal may not be achievable. People may be resistant to changing the way that things are. They may not think it's a big deal. They may think that things are working well right now, so why change it? And so I would bring my advocacy efforts to the Fairview Heights Public Works Office, specifically the street manager, and I would advocate for those individuals who typically walked on the sidewalks. I also believe that the advocacy movement does align with the 3 principles of macro level advocacy. For the first one, we're establishing sidewalks and safe pedestrian walking paths, and that would ultimately lead to more accessibility to other community services, for example, Hoyleton. How does the movement promote services delivery that does not detract from the dignity and worth of clients? This is a way to empower individuals who use walking or public transportation as their primary source of transportation. And lastly, this movement also provides equal access in terms of safety to individuals who do not have cars and who rely on walking or using public transportation. Here is another image of the same area, just on the other side of the road. I took this image, and this also shows the lack of sidewalks, as well as the lack of crosswalks, and also, as you can see, it is very busy. The final image that I wanted to talk about was a specific spot that is on Meridian Road in Glencarbon, and if you're familiar with the village of Glencarbon, this is more towards that 4-way stop sign where alternatives counseling is and Kellerman investigations. And from commuting, I've been a resident of Glencarbon for the majority of my life, and I've used this road to commute to SIU for a lot of years. And one thing that I've noticed at night is there's no light post, and it really makes driving down this road very dangerous, even if you do use your brights. So one health issue that I'm seeing is that there is a lack of that lighting. And so the road is essentially pitch black, and it's surrounded by woods, and these street lights are not present. And in the next slide that I'll show, there's also a sign that says that deer are present within the next 4 miles. So there's a potential of running into wildlife and potentially damaging yourself or damaging your vehicle. So I will go ahead and I will show you that image. Here's the image from Google Maps that I took, and on the right side of this image, you can very clearly see that sign that there are deer present for the next 4 miles. And I have seen deer in this area, and as stated before, it's very, very dangerous, especially to commuters at night and local residents. And so the traditional community is Glencarbon. The non-traditional community could be the neighborhoods, the commuters, residents of the area. An example, like I said before, SIU commuters use this road a lot, and also, like I said before, when I lived in Glencarbon, I would almost always drive this way to class every day. unless I was coming from work. And I determined the issue to be a health issue because there is a potential to hit wildlife such as deer, possums, etc. if you're not careful, and this could lead to human injury. As for the community data, again, I attempted to reach out to someone from the village of Glen Carbon, and I was not able to receive a response. Maybe I'll receive a response this upcoming week. But from living in Glen Carbon, I know that they are a very wealthy community, and they really stand by being in the top 100 places to live category. The village is very, very prideful of their safe neighborhoods and their streets. And so also what I found in the census data is that as of 2018, Glen Carbon is a relatively small community with a population of almost 13,000 residents. And because this is a main road that a lot of people use, this could be very, very dangerous to commuters and residents. The advocacy effort that I would use to address the health issue would be persuasion, just because I feel like it would be the most effective due to Glen Carbon being very prideful and conscious about their image, as well as standing on their safe and clean neighborhoods. And so what I would do is I would ask questions to get people thinking, such as, do you think the high population of deer in this area may pose a safety risk to people who drive down this road at night? An argument that I would make would be that streetlights could help drivers identify the deer. And I know it's personally hard for me to see at night, even if I use my brights on this car with this area. And as we know with persuasion, again from our online lectures, is that people may be resistant to change. They may not think this necessarily needs to change. So one of their arguments could be, we've never had an accident on this road. And, you know, absolutely, I'm sure there may have never been an accident. However, what I do know is that deer are becoming more populated and they're becoming more used to humans as well. So this could affect future accidents on this road. And so the benefits would be that it would be safer at night, especially with a high population of deer if we installed these street lights. The limitations would obviously be cost to construct the lights. There may be a potential cost to run electric to the lights and the cost of electric in general. And again, people may be resistant to change and may not think that this is a dire situation. I would advocate my change to the village board of Glen Carbon. I would attend their village board meeting. They also have a public service committee meeting that I could attend and bring my concerns to. And I also believe that my advocacy movement would align with the 3 principles of macro level advocacy. For the first section, how does the movement work to increase the accessibility to services? People would have access to safer commutes at night. And as for promoting services that do not detract from the dignity of worth and clients, we are definitely keeping the dignity and worth of clients into consideration because the lights will be established in order to protect them and keep them safe, as well as wildlife. And how the movement promotes equal access to all who are eligible for the services. The lighting will be provided for all drivers and commuters, as well as residents of the surrounding neighborhoods. Here are my references, and I also wanted to say what I really took away from this project is that essentially the limitations are always going to be the cost of implementing the project. So it kind of gives me a better understanding of why things take a while to get implemented or why things don't necessarily move forward. And so it really opened up my eyes. And anyways, thank you for watching and listening to my video, and please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions, and thank you for your time.